Welcome to another episode of the Sports Corner Podcast. This is Season 3, Episode 4. My name is Nick, joined as always by my good friend Steven. And tonight we're going to continue breaking down the Power 5 NCAA conferences. We're looking at the Big 12 tonight. Looking at the Big 12, is Big 10, Big 8, Big diminishing
big
conference.
Big 8 plus 2.
Yeah, something like that. Here. Hey, Steven, how's it going, buddy?
Fantastic. How are you?
Yeah, and I can't complain. It is 9 o'clock p.m. for us on a Monday night. That means that we are live at twitch.tv/PastorNick86. So if you are catching this on YouTube, thank you so much for tuning in on the YouTube channel. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. If you are checking us out on your favorite podcast app, thank you. Be sure to leave us a 5-star rating. Write us a review. We will happily read that on the air. But the best way to catch us, perhaps, is to join us live on Twitch each week, because then you get the opportunity to chit-chat with us, which is always an amazing thing. We love the interaction that we get to have in chat each and every week. So, again, thank you so much for watching or tuning in, however that looks like, and we are excited to break things down tonight with the Big 12. So, yeah, man, I'm glad to hear it's been a good week for you. Are you excited about breaking down the Big 12, Steven?
I am very excited. I know we are in SEC country, and that's always our final breakdown. But this is always my favorite one. It's fun to hash out the Texas OU rivalry. This is a fun conference. You know, they get the mantra of not playing any defense, and I understand that. But it's a fun conference to look at. A lot of high-powered offenses, and it's just enjoyable. Hey, by the way, this Saturday. Starting this Saturday for the next 25 weeks, there will be football.
I'm very excited about that, but can I say one thing?
What's that?
25 weeks doesn't feel like enough.
That's true.
Let's make it 51.
I absolutely love
give these guys a week off. I get it.
Yeah, well, they get bye weeks.
Yeah, they're fine.
I loved the XFL, not because it was good, but there's football in the spring.
It's football in the spring. No, I agree with you. We do love to break down the Big 12 because, and we've mentioned this in our first episode of Season 3, but despite the fact that we live in SEC country, in the state of Tennessee to be specific, we both have our primary fan allegiance to teams currently in the Big 12, although not for much longer. But me being born in Oklahoma, I'm a diehard OU fan, and you, as explained in that first episode of the new season, fell in love with the Texas team there when Vince Young was there and Mac Brown was there. And
it's been a documentary today, by the way.
Did you? Was it good?
No, they announced that they're doing
announced
a 3-part 05. I think it's called 05. It's an ESPN Longhorn Network 3-part documentary on the 05 team. So
gotcha. Yeah. So you've just been a long-time Longhorn fan. And so we always have a lot of fun talking about the conference, being sure that we're able to kind of humiliate and make fun of the rest of the conference together, and then give each other all kinds of what for when it comes to the rivalry between our two teams of preference. So this is a great conference. You know, I think the Big 12 has gotten a lot of criticism in recent years. I think it's been looked at and viewed at as a weaker conference. People have kind of looked at it as a laughingstock. And I will admit that's because, they haven't had a lot of playoff appearances. When they have, OU has been kind of run out of them. But I'm telling you, we've broken down now the Pac-12, the Big Ten, and the ACC, and none of those conferences are looking like big stellar, star conferences. They all have just been lucky enough, at least in the couple of the conferences' sake, to have one team that has managed to close the deal and provide a little more respect to the conference as a whole. But top to bottom, put the Big 12 up against some of these other conferences. They're going to stand just fine.
What kills me is everybody views that LSU Texas A&M game from a couple years back as one of the greatest college football games of all time. Right? Yeah. High scoring, super fun. The Big 12 does that weekly and nobody cares, right?
Well, it's accounted to bad defense, right? Whenever it was A&M and LSU scoring 50 some odd points. It was seen as exhilarating football, a must-see ending, a must-see game. And then when the Big 12 does it, it's these guys don't know how to play defense.
I mean,
And
I've watched Texas A&M lose games, that high scoring for years. I don't know what makes that game any better.
I don't understand it. And it is interesting to me just because, there is no denying that there's probably a weakness in the defensive play of the Big 12, but what's never appreciated is the explosive offensive capability from top to bottom in the league to an extent. Obviously, there are always exceptions. Not every team in there is going to be fantastic. But, there's more than just Oklahoma's high-scoring offense. Tech has always been impressive. Iowa State's been getting better offensively. And there's just been big splash teams in there. So I'm really looking forward to it. So let's jump right on into it. Take us out.
We'll start with the big games. So we've done this every week. So we'll just keep rolling with it. My first one starts this week, or not this weekend. Week 1. This is week 0, by the way, this coming weekend.
Yeah, sure.
Week 1, so September 4th, Texas hosts Louisiana. So the Raging Cajuns returned 19 starters from last year's team. But that team was very good. They beat Iowa State in the opener last year. They bring back their they bring back their quarterback who started the last 2 years, so got lots of experience there. Bring back 3 all-conference defensive selections. Not exactly a gimme for Sark's debut.
I need to clarify something. I think my microphone cut out. You said you're really excited for the week 1 matchup between Texas and LSU. Is that what you said?
Louisiana. The Raging
just Louisiana.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Louisiana
is the best team in the state of Louisiana right now.
How burnt orange are your glasses going to be during this episode?
That's a big game.
Okay.
Louisiana, right?
Okay.
Is LSU right?
Yeah. Okay. Big game. Cool. I'm sure it is.
All right.
No, I mean, it is a, see, Face can weigh in on this. We have Face, an expert of Louisiana, in the chat. And so I'm going to let him weigh in on this, if this is a key matchup or not. Because I will give you the benefit of the doubt, Texas fan, in that we're seeing the first game of a new coach's tenure. And we're going to talk more about that coming up later in the show. So I'll give you the benefit of the doubt that seeing him playing a team that's returning a bunch of starters and is arguably a really good team is a good thing. But come on, man. How many other matchups of non-Power 5 teams have we mentioned in big games so far? Just saying.
I mean, that's fair, but I mean, it's top 25 team we're talking about.
Okay.
Like we've mentioned, I have to pull up the notes, but I mean, Washington and Michigan as a super fun game. I mean, Louisiana's probably better than Michigan.
Probably better than Washington. That's fair. I'll give it to you. That's fine.
Washington is ranked 3 positions higher than Louisiana. So
okay. Well, let me give you you gave me a Texas game. I'll give you an OU game then. At least this is a Power 5 matchup. And it's OU versus Nebraska, not because Nebraska is a great team or that they're probably going to be relevant, although watch them come win this game somehow. But it's the 50-year anniversary of the game of the century. And it's the first time that these two teams have played since 2010. They played in the Big 12 championship that year. Oklahoma did win that game. And so not only are you going to have just the first matchup in over a decade of teams that have been rivals throughout the ages, but it's on the anniversary of the game of the century, and it's also going to have a little bit of more maybe blood in it from the standpoint that Nebraska was actually trying to back out of this game earlier in the preseason, and that kind of came out that Scott Frost was the one really trying to make that happen apparently, although he denied that, and it's kind of weird, but I think that's just going to be a really high-energy game. Now, the one downside to this game is that despite OU especially trying to leverage for a better kickoff time, it got the whole Fox at noon, prime time, whatever kickoff, which is actually 11 o'clock local time. So not the best kickoff time. I would almost say that getting out of this whole Fox deal where they're getting these 11 o'clock games, because it feels like OU plays at 11 o'clock Central more often than they play any other time, might have been a big sway in the whole, let's just go to the SEC.
Well, that's absolutely the driving force from Oklahoma side of things. They have not been a fan of that schedule, and obviously we watch the Texas OU game together every year, at least try to. That's always a noon kickoff, which is 11 Central.
At least that one I can understand. They're literally trying to save lives with that game being at the Texas State Fair. If people could sit there and drink until 7 o'clock at night, there would be so much pre-game death with alcohol poisoning and post-game death with drunk driving incidents. That one, I mean, I agree. I would much rather a little bit later kickoff, but I'll give them that one. Yeah, 3:30. That's what I'm saying. But I'll give them that one. They want to get the responsibility of all the drunken shenanigans not on them at that point. All right, you got any more big games?
I do. I have another one. So I'll just to go back to my Louisiana thing. I almost picked Texas, Arkansas, but
Okay.
Louisiana is a better team than Arkansas, so I went with Louisiana.
All right, that's fair.
Arkansas would have been your two P5 schools.
Sure.
My next one, Iowa State. This is week 2. Again, week 0, not counting. Week 2, September 11th in Ames. These two teams hate each other. They truly do not like each other. And then you add in the fact that last year's game was canceled, and then you have even more fuel on this year's fire. This could be Iowa State's tryout for the Big Ten, something Iowa is sure to fight. But it's not like Iowa is going to roll over here either. We mentioned last week that they're riding that 6-game win streak. Not the most impressive 6-game stretch, but still. And they have not lost to Iowa State since 2014.
Which is interesting because Iowa State is increasingly getting better each year under Campbell, and so this could be
Do you remember 2 years ago? We covered it on the podcast. 2 years ago, how that game ended with Iowa State having the win and just all kinds of chaos surrounded, and they ended up losing that game.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that.
Assuming both teams win their opener, this will be the first ever ranked matchup between the two teams.
Interesting. That'll be a good matchup for sure. I like that. I've always enjoyed the way Iowa has played football, and then I've really enjoyed watching Iowa State under Campbell, and so be interested to see how that goes. I'll mention another one that's probably on both of ours. It's OU versus Texas. That's the Red River Showdown, the Red River Shootout, the Red River Rivalry, the whatever little Red River acronym that we want to use. It'll always be that, but then apparently people shot at each other, and that's a big deal. This game, of course, is always just
Texas. What do they expect?
Yeah. This has always been such a perennial matchup in the Big 12 year in and year out. No matter what either team is doing going into that game, you can expect it to be competitive 9 times out of 10. You can always expect the team that's going in with the wide receiver playing quarterback because everyone else got COVID to go in and throw for 9 touchdowns and run for 400 yards. It's just one of those games. And we see these kind of matchups in other parts of the country as well. And so this is not necessarily unique only to OU Texas, but it is seemingly the most consistent in this OU Texas game. I mean, you think about Ohio State, Michigan. That has been true in that rivalry for a time, but not recently. Think about Tennessee, Florida, or Tennessee, Alabama. Not been the case. So I'm sure it is true, and if I went and looked at every rivalry, we would see probably 2 or 3 others that are consistently like this. But it just seems to me that every year Texas OU is going to be a competitive and enjoyable game, and no reason that it wouldn't be, and no reason that it won't have some Big 12 championship, considerations going into it.
I liken that game to the Bama-Auburn game.
That's a good one, yeah.
That game always has weird things happen and craziness and all of that. I didn't list that one. I thought you might, so I stayed away from it. That is obviously the game of the Big 12 season. That's what everybody circles. That is what keeps the Big 12 afloat, at least for the time being, as we may touch on later. My final big game was Iowa State, Oklahoma. So this is November 20th in Norman. Looks like I lost Nick.
No, I'm here.
Okay. So I think the championship game comes through this game. Texas has aspirations to get there. TCU might try to sneak their way in, but these are your 2 front runners going into the season. This is kind of that first taste, that teaser, that appetizer to what I think will be the eventual Big 12 championship rematch. But it'll be a fun kind of litmus test for these two teams to see where they both stand, to see what Spencer Rattler looks like against that Iowa State defense, see what Iowa State can do against what I think, and I'll get into later, is a very improved Oklahoma defense.
Yeah, very good. I did not list that one just because of the standpoint I was trying to not list too many games that have my favorite team in it, but I do agree that that will be a very interesting matchup. I do agree that we'll likely see a rematch 2 weeks or whatever that is later for the Big 12 championship game, unless there are just some surprises and shocks along the way, which of course we know is very, very possible. Last thing I just want to mention is this is kind of a catch-all, but we have talked about already, and so we won't go into it in detail tonight. We've talked about OU and Texas having made the switch to the SEC from the Big 12. If you want to hear more about that, go back to listen to episode 1 of season 3, and we break that down in great detail. We talk about what we think that means in a lot of detail. So we'll touch on it a little bit tonight, but not a lot. With that said, currently by the bylaws or whatever, that's not going to happen for several more years. Now, neither you or I think it's going to be several more years. I said from way back when that I think it's 1, maybe 2. And then we've kind of sat in there. Maybe 1 to 3, 2 being probably the safe bet. But most likely as early as next year, we could see a lot of this movement happen.
I think I've mentioned this before. What I've heard is that, not that I have sources, I listen to podcasts.
According to my in-depth sources via the podcast that I listen to.
This podcast I listen to, there's a beat writer that covered Texas and Oklahoma, and he had some connections with recruits. What he's heard is that Sark has been playing in the SEC for Texas next season.
Yeah.
That's kind of the timeline they're operating on. We've talked about, the buyout currently, how much it is, and how much we think it will drop. I'm guessing it drops significantly next year, and Texas decides, okay, we'll pay that. Leave us alone.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We both agree that it's sooner rather than later. Very possibly as soon as next year. Very realistically as soon as next year. And so with that said, my last kind of big game to consider is just going to be every conference road game featuring OU or Texas, because every fan base is going to want to get their little shots in. They're going to want to get their cheers in. They're going to want to just give these teams what they can. And I think we're going to see teams come in, especially on their home field, and really try to perform at another level against these teams that they might not be facing up against for a long time for some of these teams. I mean, who knows the next time that, OU and Baylor or Texas and Baylor play each other? Who knows the next time, not that I'm really worried about this matchup, but Oklahoma and Kansas match up with each other. So I just think that all of those games are going to have a little bit of a different feel, or at least, let me put it this way. If the fan bases have any consideration for really making their mark on the season, they will raise all kind of cane whenever Texas or Oklahoma comes to their town, and they're going to let them know exactly what to think about breaking up the Big 12 and making this conference completely irrelevant, most likely completely dissolved within a couple of years. So that's kind of just going to be a fun thing to watch and see how it goes throughout the season.
No doubt. Well, let's jump into the favorites. Who is your favorite for the conference?
Well, I mean, I think it's no surprise that my favorite for the conference, my favorite, it's going to be my conference pick here in a few minutes. I mean, all of that has got to be Oklahoma. And
not your favorite team. Who do you think is going to win it?
Ha, 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 ha. I do say this, with as unbiasedly as I can, but there's no reason to think that OU is not the favorite coming into the conference. They've won it 6 times in a row. Lincoln Riley has never lost the Big 12 championship. We've seen them be vulnerable on their home field, which something that in their past has not happened. So it's not like that they're some indestructible force, and goodness knows they have weaknesses. We've seen that exposed at times. But in Big 12 play, you can't tell me that they're not going in looking great with the players that they're returning, the players that they're bringing in, and let's just be honest, the schedule. Okay, they're out of conference schedule. Week 1, Tulane. Week 2, WCU. Then you get the game of the century rematch with Nebraska, and you go into conference play most likely 3-0, and you just have to go and start taking care of conference business, and you're probably going to be doing that with confidence. You've given your returning quarterback time to settle in and probably get some good things going. So my favorite obviously overall is going to be Oklahoma. With that said, we both already have mentioned that Iowa State is probably going to be the team that gives them the most competition, that is going to be probably meeting them in the championship game and has the ability to beat them. We have seen Iowa State beat Oklahoma. I believe you probably have this stat somewhere in your notes, but I believe Matt Campbell is 2-4 against OU, or 2 out of 4, or something goofy like that. I mean, he's got a good win percentage, all things considered, over Oklahoma. And so that's definitely a team that you have to consider. And then you also have to consider Texas. What can they do? They have the talent, not where they want it to be, but considering the rest of the talent across the conference, they have good talent. So how motivated does Sark get them to play year one? And how much time does it take him to implement some of those things? If he can do it quickly, then they could come and punch some teams in the mouth that's not expecting it, and they could definitely, I see them making a bigger splash than a team like Kansas, who also has a first-year head coach or something like that. So
I'm right there with you. My favorite's Oklahoma for this season. They bring back Spencer Rattler, host of wide receivers. They get back Kenny Brooks. They added what I think could be the best transfer in the country, and running back Eric Gray from Tennessee. I think this offense fits him perfectly. But this is a team that's averaged over 40 points per game for 6 straight seasons.
yeah, it's not too shabby.
40. Now they've given up, like 60, but
no, sir.
I take it back. What
Do you know
I
how many? Do you know how many
this
they gave up average last year?
I do.
All right. We'll get
I think what makes this team different is the defense this year. That's
Okay.
what's making me believe in the OU hype this year.
Okay.
I am typically on the Oklahoma will probably win the Big 12, but they will get run out of the stadium, whichever stadium it is, in the playoff.
Right.
And that's held pretty true. But I think Alex Grinch is finally starting to make a massive improvement on this defense. So they
Okay.
gave up 33.3 points per game in 2018, so before he was hired. That was down to 21.7 last year.
Okay.
Again, COVID, all of that. Weird
Mm-hmm.
things, but noticeable difference on the defense side of the ball. This is a group that's led by linebacker Nick Benito, who's projected to be a high first-round pick. They have a
Yeah.
lot of other returners on that side.
Yeah.
And I think this could be the year that Lincoln Riley finally gets it all put together. That offense is going to be rolling, and that defense, again, I don't think they're going to be the Alabama, shutout defense, but I think they might finally be good enough to get them over the hump.
When your offense can average 40 points a game, your defense doesn't have to be the shutout one. They just have to get it done, right? You
Have to allow less than 40.
Well, in theory, that's how it works.
My other favorite, I have Iowa State.
Okay.
They have arguably the best backfield in the conference, possibly the country, with Breece Hall, Brock Purdy.
Mm-hmm.
Breece Hall certainly has a Heisman hopeful candidacy coming up. We'll talk about him in a minute. But Brock Purdy hasn't been too shabby himself. So last year, in 12 games, he was 243 of 365, so 66%. He threw for 19 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. The year before, he threw for 27 touchdowns, so it's not like he doesn't have that ability in him. So his sophomore year, he threw for almost 4,000 yards.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a guy that has done it on the big stage, and then you look at Matt Campbell, and he's known for his tough defense. So if his similarly to what we were talking about with Oklahoma, their defense has to be good enough to let their offense win. Iowa State's kind of the opposite. Their offense has to be good enough to let their defense win the game for them. My only hang up here is this team is not used to these expectations, right? They're coming into this season with the top 10 ranking. They're number 7 in the country. That's not where they're used to being, right? They're used to being the underdog, the feel-good story. How do they flip the script here as a favorite, and how are they able to adapt? How are they able to deal with that kind of added pressure that may or may not exist externally, but you certainly feel it internally?
All right. That makes sense. How do they do with the target on their back? I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I only have one dark horse.
Okay.
It's Texas for me.
Okay.
They have an entirely new coaching staff, which could be a good thing. They do have to replace Sam Ehlinger.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not going to be an easy.
What was starting quarterback for 14 years?
You would think so. Only 4.
Felt like 14.
But this is a guy that started a ton of games. Let's see, a lot. 40 something games for Texas.
Yep.
Um,
4
I
years.
mean,
40 years. 14
threw
years.
yeah, threw for almost 11,500 yards, 94 touchdowns. That's just his passing stats. Doesn't account for all the ones he had on the ground. Um, just a true leader on that side of the ball, and he's gone. You're also missing your starting left tackle, who was a draft pick last year. You lose a lot of receivers, but this is Texas. This is a team that is full of talent. Talent that's not lived up to expectations, but talent nonetheless. So if Steve Sarkisian is able to get this offense going, to get that talent working, and on the flip side, the new defense coordinator Pete Kwiatkowski, who they're paying handsomely to get that defense turned around. Again, a lot of talent on the defensive side that we've seen individual talent. We've seen guys make amazing plays, but they've never been a cohesive unit. So if these are big ifs, that's why it's a dark horse, right? If that defense is able to come together, then I think Texas is in position to make a run. You mentioned OU having that weak schedule. Texas on the flip side, they get Louisiana, they get Arkansas. They have some not, they're not going to Oregon by any means, but these are not gimmies up on the front end of their schedule. They're going to be battle tested before they get into conference play. And so even if they lose both of those, if they can rebound from that, assuming they win at least one, maybe they get that momentum going and they're able to carry that in and make that run.
Yeah, it's a very delicate balance between, do they get strengthened by having the hard schedule and learn to overcome adversity, or do they drop a couple early and then lose all confidence going into conference play and that snowballs? I do think that they have a leg up on a lot of the Big 12 conference, and so I think that even if they lose some early, they can start rolling in conference play and build momentum. And I think Texas is a great dark horse team. I mean, you heard that they were the borderline, in my favor. It's just a team to keep an eye on, because I do think Sarkisian is a good enough coach to really not only instill a culture quickly in Texas, but to develop talent quickly in Texas. Now, ultimately, the question becomes, how quick is he able to do that? And it's tough to expect a coach to do that in year one. And so I hope the fan base doesn't expect, well, I don't care if the fan base does because it's Texas, but realistically, a fan base should not expect that and does not hold that against the coach coming into year one. But yeah, that's a good one. I'll just mention Oklahoma State. They're little brother to OU. They're really annoying, especially this offseason, but they are a potential dark horse team to watch. They have a returning quarterback in Spencer Sanders, who is coming into his third year as a starter. They do have some more depth around him, but also a very weakness in their receiving core, so they definitely need some players to step up in that aspect of the game. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I think they held players or teams to about 20, 25-ish points per game last year. So if they can just kind of move forward in that direction of doing that, then, if games go their way, they can make a splash and be in the consideration. But I don't foresee them actually being competitive in that in the conference play.
No doubt. Give me your first Heisman contender from the Big 12.
Well, I think there's one player in the Big 12 who should be on everyone's list, and so I guess I'll take him. It's Spencer Rattler. He's a quarterback for Oklahoma. Honestly, when I wrote that, he was going to make my list because I think he's talented enough to make my list. And then as I did more research, I realized actually just how favored he is actually to win the Heisman right now. He is 11-2 odds of winning the Heisman. He's like number one on all the Heisman pre-watches, which surprised me a little bit because he certainly had a good year last year, 28 touchdowns versus 7 interceptions. But what I did notice was that 18 of those touchdowns came over the last 8 games of the season, with only 2 interceptions during that same stretch. So obviously, 28-7 isn't fantastic. It's not terrible, but it's not what you would expect from a Heisman contender. But 18 versus 2 is a little bit better. You could see that he got things going later in the season as he kind of got some confidence. But the fact that he is the starting quarterback at Oklahoma, a team that does, as we've said, averages 40 points per game. They're going to throw it out. They have some amazing wide receivers that he is able to throw the ball to, and those guys just sometimes make it look easy for the quarterback. And so, yeah, I think he is the natural number one Heisman contender coming out of this conference.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, we talked about it last week with Ohio State. They did officially name Stroud the starting quarterback, by the way.
Yep, saw that.
Um,
Saw that in
but
our Discord. Join the Discord.
I saw it in there, but I saw it before that too. All those things you mentioned last week apply to Oklahoma, right? Spencer Rattler is better than CJ Stroud, in my opinion. But it doesn't matter how good he is with those receivers, right? And so you mentioned all the numbers. He's certainly capable of doing more than that. But the main reason he's my favorite, at least from the Big 12, is Lincoln Riley always puts his guys in the best position to succeed. I mean, and he almost always sends somebody to New York for the Heisman ceremony, right? I mean,
Yep.
so I've said it before jokingly, but I think if you gave me an offseason that I could be a serviceable quarterback for Lincoln Riley because he just makes it so easy and makes lets his guys put up numbers. And so I think Spencer Rattler will absolutely be there. My only other real contender from the Big 12 is Breece Hall. He's the best offensive player on a top 10 team.
Sure.
So he deserves to be mentioned.
Okay.
We haven't seen a running back win the Heisman for a little while, but that could mean we're due. I think people get tired of picking the quarterback to win every year. Obviously, some years it doesn't matter how tired you are; they're that good.
They're that good, yeah.
But if we're gonna pick a running back, I think Breece Hall is as good of a pick as any from that position. And then just to add a dark horse, Bijan Robinson, the running back from Texas. Maybe it's my orange tinted glasses, but if you want to find a reason for Tom Herman's firing, there's plenty. But look no further than his misuse of Bijan Robinson. This is a guy who averaged over 8 yards per carry. Can you guess how many touches he got a game?
No, that I don't know. So let's say he had 6 touches a game.
He had 11.
Okay.
That came both in the passing game and in the run game.
Gotcha.
Against Kansas State, he averaged over 19 yards per carry, and he got 9 carries.
Is this the guy who was torching OU there for a while and then never touched the ball like in the second half?
Yep, exactly that guy.
Okay.
In the bowl game against Colorado, which was not a blowout. Kansas State was a blowout, so some of that can be attributed. Not a blowout in the bowl game. He averaged over 18 yards per carry and got 10 carries.
Why would you just not feed that boy until he can't eat?
This is my point, right? So this is, if you want a reason for why people were so frustrated with Tom Herman, everybody said, well, he's winning games. He's going 9-4 or whatever. That's your issue right there. Is he has a guy who is putting up all these video game numbers, and you're just not giving him the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna pull up those game logs again.
Well, rest assured, as you pull those up, that was not simply your orange tinted glances. Bijan Robinson was also on my Heisman watchers to watch from the Big 12. Not because I necessarily think he's going to be a preseason odd-on favorite there or anything like that, but I just think that he has the potential. I saw that too. Averaged 8.2 yards per carry in 2020. Only scored 4 touchdowns, but that's largely going to be contributed to his lack of touches. Yeah. So if Sarkisian
all 4 of those came in the last 2 games.
Yeah.
Plus two in the air.
So if Sarkisian's coming in saying, hey, we don't want to put this all on a first-time starting quarterback, then let's ride the guy who apparently is willing to go out and put in some work and is willing to put down some tough yards and to run through some stuff. So if Texas, has a breakout year and they make a big, deep run and they're, 1 loss or undefeated going late in the season, something like that, then absolutely he can get some looks if he's the one carrying the load.
And if you go back to Sark in Alabama, he's a guy that wants to get the ball in his best player's hands. However that is. And he found Devontae Smith. Everybody knew the ball was going to Devontae Smith. He got the ball in Devontae Smith's hands, right? He gets the ball in his best player's hands in space and lets them do what they do best. So that's why I have Bijan as a dark horse. If Texas is able to make a run, it's going to be with Bijan Robinson as the lead guy there, and I think, you know, if Texas finds themselves in the national conversation for a college football playoff berth, then that's likely because of what Bijan Robinson has done. He might earn himself a trip to New York.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we've kind of already covered this a little bit with our favorites just because this conference is most likely heading in one direction, but your conference pick?
OU over Iowa State. I
Okay.
think it's a year too soon for Sarkisian and Texas to get there. I think they'll make it close, but I think they'll fall short. And like I mentioned earlier, I think Oklahoma has a legitimate shot at a national championship this year.
Okay. Very good. Yeah, same thing. We've already hit a lot of this. OU's won 6 straight conference titles in a row. Lincoln Riley's never not won the conference title. They're bringing back a ton of talent on both sides of the ball, but especially on offense, where they have, as we've said now multiple times, averaged 40 points per game for 6 years in a row. Also,
Nuts.
you mentioned it already that their D under Alex Grinch is finally improving. It's still in need of improvement. Hopefully we see that happen, or hopefully I see that happen this year. You probably don't care so much. But Grinch is showing progress from year to year. In 2018, OU gave up 33 points per game. So when you got to score 40 apparently. But he only gave up, or OU's defense only gave up 21.7 last year. So big improvement there from giving up 33 2 years ago to giving up 21.7 last year. Again, that's not where you need them to be. It's not where you want them to be. But you've mentioned some of the star players coming back there, some of the defensive leaders, the fact that they're getting better. I think, my crimson-colored glasses have hurt me too many times in the past for me to really think that they can go out and win a national championship this year. I don't want to get hurt, but I do foresee them, barring them self-destructing or something weird happening, winning the Big 12.
Yeah, I just don't think it's really a debate. I mean, Matt Campbell's a good coach. He makes things interesting, but it's hard to pick against what Oklahoma's done. And, they're not really breaking in anybody new, right? I mean, they added peripheral pieces.
Right.
So I have 2 questions for you.
Okay.
One is, and it's a two-parter,
All right.
and we've kind of talked about it, but let's dive in more on Steve Sarkisian here. Will Texas ever be back?
Okay.
And to make that a little easier, do you think Sark is finally the right guy for Texas?
Okay. I almost promise if you went and listened to our Big 12 breakdown from a couple of years ago, we would have asked this same exact question regarding Tom Herman coming in. So I think it's interesting. We're back where we started, asking this question again. Is Texas back? It's too early to say. It's too early to say. I think Steve Sarkisian is a good hire. I think his creative genius is exactly the person you have to hire to come into what is currently the Big 12. Now we're going back to the SEC. Obviously, he's had success there as a coordinator at Alabama, so that seems like a really good fit as well. With that said, we have seen Alabama be the school for the rehabilitation of coaches, and we've seen a lot of coaches be successful there who have not gone on to be successful other places, but we have seen some that have as well. So with that said, I think it's too early to say. Now, I think he's a better hire than several of the last Texas coaches have been. When you look at this hire, you say, that makes sense. When I saw the Tom Herman hire, I said, that's a bit of a reach. Maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. When they hired Charlie Young, I thought, Charlie Strong, right?
Oh, yeah.
I said to myself, that doesn't seem like the best hire. So I think for once they've made a hire that I think makes sense for the university. I think they've made moves with the staff that makes sense for the university. And from some of the stuff that I've seen him put out, which I'll admit I don't follow Texas athletics closely at all because I don't care about Texas athletics, but it seems like he is saying the right things to motivate not only his players, but the fan base, and not only just the fan base, but the young fan base, which I think is important. This is something you and I have talked about with Tennessee, and we won't go into great detail here, but it seems like sometimes universities and coaches have to walk this line between making the boosters who are in their 80s happy so the money keeps rolling, and then doing things for the program that are going to excite your younger fan base, your students at the university, et cetera, et cetera. And I think Sarkisian's walking that line well, and he's given the young fans something that they can be excited in and that the players can buy into. So time will tell. We can't realistically answer this question before we've ever seen the product put on the field.
I agree. And I think I like the Sarkisian hire. I said at the time, I'm not going to react until I see what staff he brings in. And I absolutely love the staff Sarkisian put together. And Texas spared no cost when they let him put this team together. It makes sense now, whenever you look at the timeline of them joining the SEC, why they kind of allowed this to happen, why they forked out this money. At the time, it was like, wow, they're just really going all in on this Sarkisian hire. But now it makes a little more sense. So the offensive line coach and the offensive coordinator, which Sarkisian will call plays, much like Lincoln Riley does in Oklahoma. So he will make $1.1 million in his first year, and that goes up from there. The special teams coordinator and tight ends coach, Jeff Banks, who is hailed amongst most in the recruiting world as a rainmaker. He's kind of the lead recruiter on a lot of these big guys Alabama had. He will make $1 million, and I don't see Pete Kwiatkowski's for the DC job, but he's over $1 million as well. Your defensive line coach is going to make $875,000. And they just put together a who's who of a coaching staff and paid them handsomely to do so. And some of that is you have to get them away from Alabama, from Washington, places where they're established. But Texas did what they had to do to get them. And obviously it remains to be seen how they mesh. But I think Sark did a good job of hiring guys he's comfortable with at key positions, but also challenging himself with hires that he's maybe not as comfortable with, but trusts to do a good job. And I think that was an issue a lot of people had with Tom Herman was, yeah, he won a lot of games at Houston, but he brought his whole staff with him instead of using some of that extra budget to go find guys that might be better. And I think that bit him early, and then he tried to make amends for it late, and it was just too late to do so. So it looks like Sarkisian's maybe righting that wrong before it ever becomes an issue. And obviously, we don't know. It could come back to bite him, but I like the idea of let's go get some really good football coaches, and we'll figure out how to work together.
For sure. It's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, Sarkisian has had he's had a storied history in his coaching career. We've seen some interesting things happen, especially whenever he was at USC out in the Pac-12. So time will tell. I think it was a good hire at the time, I think it was a good hire. Now let's see how it plans out, and we'll either be, next year or 2 years from now saying, "Man, Texas is back," or we're going to be saying, "Question: Do we think Texas is back with this new coach again?" kind of thing. So we'll see. But I do think, I think it makes sense at the time. I think he'll do well. Hopefully, except for when he plays OU.
My second question is, and we've kind of touched on it, so we don't have to go into super detail, but what's next for the Big 12? We all know the announcement. Texas and Oklahoma are joining the SEC. Timeline is still a little iffy. We think it'll be sooner than what's currently being thrown out there. But what happens to the rest of the conference?
Yeah, again, so if you want a really in-depth analysis on this, go back, listen to episode 1 of this season for us really talking about this for about 40 minutes. With that said, here's the 2-minute or so nugget of it. I think that this year, every team in the Big 12, other than OU and Texas, is compiling a highlight reel of their team, and they are sending it out to anyone who might have any interest. despite the fact that they are all have been on their high horse with righteous indignation, talking about the bitter betrayal of these teams. How could they do this to our conference, to our state, to our et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? I can guarantee, like you mentioned earlier, Iowa State is going to want to go out there and put on a good performance against Iowa so that they can make their case to the Big Ten. Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, whoever it is, they're going to be putting out their best foot forward so they can. And then teams like Baylor and, some of the other teams are going to be drastically hoping and praying for some kind of Super Texas league so that they have some kind of relevance. So realistically, one of two things, in my opinion, are going to happen. One, some of these teams are going to get poached by other leagues, and we're going to see a couple of them. Not all of them, but a couple of them get picked up by another Power 5 conference that's looking to expand and stay competitive and relevant with what the SEC is doing. And so we'll see that happen, and then the rest of the teams will go and join Group of 5 conferences, be out of the Power 5. The other option is that none of these other teams get picked up, and the Big 12 becomes...
Finally adds teams?
No, that would be such an ideal scenario if they could go and poach a couple of Power 5 teams for some other conferences and really formulate up. But here's the thing. They didn't do that. They didn't do that when they could have a couple of years ago.
Well, and that kickstarted this whole thing, right?
Right. That's exactly right.
They agreed to add Houston and UCF or Memphis or whoever it was, right? Colorado. Go find somebody. Add them. And we're not having this discussion today. I think if the Big 12 was smart, they would try to add SMU, Houston, some of those teams now. I've seen it thrown about that with the new NIL deals, that SMU could be your team to watch as kind of this riser from the Group of 5 being in Dallas.
Them having something like where they're paying players and something crazy is going on? That would never happen there.
Never, ever. But this is a team based in Dallas. I'm going off script here, but team based in Dallas, very large market. The only real team based in Dallas, right? So this is a school that could really capitalize on this NIL deal if they play their cards right. But back on topic, I think that's smart for the Big 12. What we've seen time and again is the Big 12 is not smart. So what I just said will never happen. They will be poached. Kansas has already apparently reached out to the ACC and the Big Ten. I think it's only a matter of time before one of those conferences pick them up for basketball. Obviously,
sure,
they could care less about football. But when you have a blue blood like Kansas in basketball, that's a free agent. You have to take them. I think Iowa State is making their play for the Big Ten to join Iowa. I think the Pac-12 will take some scraps. And then I think you're right. I think you'll see teams like Baylor, Kansas State, Texas Tech potentially as the odd man out, because what do they bring across the board, right? Kansas brings it in basketball. Iowa State currently brings it in football. Oklahoma State has kind of been that solid middle of the road team that any conference would like to add, right? And so you have those, and then what do you do after that? What does Baylor bring? Maybe basketball, but how long does that last? Right. Going back to your high horse comment, one of those podcasts I was listening to recently where they were talking about what's next in this realignment is Baylor was involved in breaking up a conference before, and they had no issue doing it then because they got a bigger chunk of the pie.
That's right.
So now the roles are reversed, and
they're outraged.
We're suddenly gonna care about little brother whenever we threw them to the wolves previously.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely outraged now.
Yeah, I think the Big 12's done.
I don't. Ultimately. Yeah, because here's my thing. Even if you go out and add Memphis, you add UCF, you add SMU, whoever it is, who cares?
We're headed toward a Big 4, right? There won't be a P5. It will be a P4, right. Whatever you want to call that group.
Right.
And at best, the Big 12 falls into a G6 now instead of a G5. So
yeah,
the Big 12 always know it is dead, and I think the Big 12 in general is dead.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. All right. Well, that is kind of our breakdown of the Big 12. If you are of the type to make a friendly wager with a coworker or with a bookie in Las Vegas, and you're looking for what to do regarding the Big 12, well, find another podcast because you should not take our advice
Oh
if
no.
any kind of honor or money is on the line. But we do
However,
think that this is a good thing of what's going on in the Big 12.
I am going to put your betting prowess on
Oh,
display
no.
here. We're going to pick a few
Oh,
games
boy. Okay.
before we
Do
get
you have a
into
website
outside.
for this that I can look at least be looking at these two?
Sure. If you type in, I
Man,
just
if
Googled
only we had a
week.
Discord where you could like drop a link. But okay, Googled
Okay,
what?
okay. I'm
I'm
with
just
you. I'm
gonna
sorry.
week 0 matchups.
I'm sorry. There's your link. Pull it up. So we're gonna go through week 0 has a few games, and they're not they're not projected to be good games.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but hey, it's football. I will watch it because I'm a sucker.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we will start with Nebraska and Illinois. It is the 1 p.m. Eastern time game.
Okay.
Nebraska is minus 280 to win. They are 6.5 point favorites. Who do you like in the matchup? Do you take Nebraska or Illinois?
Okay. Let's see. Hold on. I got it pulled up now. The stream. You've got it as well.
Mm-hmm.
This is from sportsbookwire.usatoday.com.
Mm-hmm.
Don't sue us. We're citing you. All right, Nebraska, Illinois, 1 p.m. kickoff. Nebraska 2. I don't really follow spreads and all that. I pick Nebraska to win this game.
Would you take them with the spread? So they have to win by a touchdown.
Yeah, I'll take them for a touchdown.
Okay. Yukon, Fresno State, 2 p.m. Yukon plus 27.5. So Fresno State is projected to win by 4 touchdowns. So I think we both assume Fresno State wins this game.
Yeah, I mean, if we're picking straight up Fresno State, but I don't think the spread is met.
Okay. Hawaii, UCLA. This is a 3:30 p.m. kickoff, which has got to be weird for Hawaii. What's that, like 6:30 in the morning or something
Yeah,
ridiculous?
probably so.
So UCLA is favored by 17.5. So you need basically 3 touchdowns in this game.
Mm-hmm. Straight up, I think UCLA wins. I have not done any research on Hawaii to really say what they're going to be able to do with the spread. So I'll say that UCLA covers because why not?
Okay. More fun. Do you think they get over 68.5 points?
No, I don't think UCLA can put up that many points.
Okay. UTEP, New Mexico State, 9:30 late game.
This is the one
UTEP
I'm tuning
is
into, baby.
UTEP is favored by 8.5. So you
Okay.
need 3 field goals to win this one.
That's right. I'm going to take a touchdown and a field goal to win this one. Yeah, I could see them covering the spread on that one.
Okay, over 54.5.
Sure.
All right. Last game, the 10 p.m., the nightcap. Southern Utah at San Jose State should be a barn burner.
Didn't
San Jose
know
State is favored.
Southern Utah played.
Yeah, I didn't know they were a thing. San Jose State is 21.5 point favorites.
Mm-hmm.
So
You heard it here, folks. San Jose State way overranked, way overestimated in this matchup. Southern Utah is going to win this matchup.
This is why you should not take betting advice from Nick. The over is 55.5. So
Yeah,
what's that,
take the under.
touchdown?
Take the under.
Okay.
But straight up, Southern Utah is going to win this game. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah.
There you have it. There's our
Solid.
picks.
That's it. Take it to the bank, baby.
You haven't outside the stadium for us this week.
Not this week. A couple of stories we've been looking at, watching, but there's always something going on, but did not get to put enough research time into one, other than the research that I've had to put into what the next computer I'm going to buy is, because my MacBook Pro has turned into a brick this week, so it's completely dead on me.
Nice.
So
Yeah, my washer died, so I've been dealing with that. That's why my notes were made.
well,
One interesting fact,
Mhm.
is back in NIL, we've talked about it kind of every week.
Mhm.
Did you know that international students or international players cannot do NIL deals?
I did not know that. That's
Something
intriguing.
has something to do with their visa thing. I don't know, but
I could see that.
yeah, fun fact. If you
Wow.
are an international student, you cannot profit off of the NIL.
That is unfortunate for them, for sure. Well, if we don't have anything more on Outside the Stadium, do you know what time that means it is, Stephen?
I think it's time to cue the music.
as we get ready to wrap up this episode, it's time for our Mount Rushmore segment. That's right, this is one of our favorite segments of the week. It's where we talk about, where we break down, where we look at our Mount Rushmore of some given topic on any given night. Tonight's topic, our favorite, dare I say it, fast food sauces. So we're going to give our favorite fast food sauces tonight. This is intriguing. We touched on this last night because we talked about how sometimes the sauce makes a fry.
That's true.
So,
okay. I'll let you lead us off.
Okay. Hey, happy to. I am going with number 4, the Arby's sauce.
Okay.
I'm a fan of the Arby's sauce. It's great on their curly fries. It's great on their roast beef sandwiches. Just good in general. It makes a subpar fast food joint really excel. So love me some Arby's sauce. Number 3, Polynesian sauce from Chick-Fil-A. I love Polynesian sauce. It's great on their nuggets. It's great on their fries. Yeah, it's good on everything. It probably should be higher, but it is a little sweet. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you know.
Universality with it. I don't think that's a word, but
yeah,
I might get a word right there.
It's a little too sweet to be higher on my list. Number 2, the Chick-fil-A sauce. This is just a classic kind of borderline mayo, borderline, got a little hint of barbecue-ness in there. It's got to be considered as some great sauce. But number 1 for me, not Face Esquire in the chat saying cane sauce number 1, only because Face, it's been probably 12 years since I've had cane sauce, so it is good. Although I think it's very comparable to Zaxby's Zax sauce, which is a good sauce, but not nearly as good as my number 1, which is the blackened ranch from Popeye's Chicken.
I need to try that again.
It's the perfect blend of ranchy goodness with a little bit of kick to it, but not a bad kick to it. It's good. Now, honorable mention for me was the Zaxby's Zax sauce, which is about the same thing as the cane sauce. It's very good on their chicken sandwiches, but I don't really like the fries at there anyway, so I never get them. I always get the chips instead, which I'm not going to dip in a sauce. So I feel like I don't use their sauce enough for it to actually crack my list.
It's actually a pretty good ranch for the chips, if you want to give that a go.
Okay.
My top 4, very different this week. So number 4 for me, I have Chick-fil-A barbecue sauce.
Okay.
It's a nice change. You mentioned the Polynesian being too sweet.
Did they go back to their original barbecue sauce? Because you remember that they changed barbecue sauce a couple years ago, and I think they've gone back. Because it went to like the smokehouse, and now it's back to the original.
Yeah, the original was better. The smokehouse was okay, but it wasn't great. I think they got rid of all that smokehouse stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
Number 3, I do have the Zax sauce.
Okay.
Again, I don't care for it with fries like you, but it is so good. That new signature sandwich they have is very good.
Is it? See, I need to try it. I've not tried it yet.
It's very good. I don't like pickles, so I get mine no pickle. They also have a spicy one now that you may like.
Is it breaded spicy, or is it just got a spicy sauce on it?
No, they have a spicy Zax sauce is what I'm saying.
Oh, a spicy Zax sauce.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and it is, it's not too crazy spicy. You'll probably like it. I'm not a huge spice guy, but it was good. Number 2, Wendy's honey mustard. It is the best honey mustard at a fast food joint. It is worth getting and using at other fast food joints if you're a honey mustard fan like I am. Number 1 for me is Polynesian. I love Polynesian. I will dip fries. I will dip nuggets. I will put it on a sandwich. I will put it on a salad. I will put it
on a salad, you monster.
I will put it on anything. It is amazing. No, probably not the salad. But I do put it on their wrap. It's very good on the wrap.
Oh, I mean, I'll give you that. It's good on the wrap. Have you ever used it at home?
Oh yeah, yeah.
At home.
Oh,
have you ever used it?
No, I have not.
Okay. All right. Just saying. Sometimes, like when I cook air fryer chicken, I love to have some.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's very good. I've yet to find anything that is not good. Wendy's honey mustard is amazing.
No, so here's the thing. I don't think I've ever had it, but right now I gotta say I'm kind of siding with a face here. Like, what makes their honey now? And I'll say this. I'm genuinely asking this. What makes their honey mustard good? Because have you ever had the honey mustard at like Bel Air Grill?
Well, that's not a fast food joint.
I know, but I'm just saying. Have you ever had that? Let's go with me.
Yes, I've had it there. It's really sweet at Bel Air. It's very good, but it's
to me, like, yeah, but that tastes different. So, like, there are things that make honey mustard stand apart from others. What makes theirs?
It is more honey than mustard, right? So, I'm not a mustardy flavored honey mustard guy, which you can get at Sonic's is very mustardy.
I guess I just don't get honey mustard out a lot.
Why do you not go to Wendy's? Wendy's is great. A 4 for $4, $5 biggie bag. And you're in a hurry. It's great.
It's a fresh, never frozen burger face.
True. Definitely never frozen.
Never frozen.
It's just good. It's sweet, but it's not too sweet. It's a good fried dip. It's good on their nuggets.
All right, so compare it to like Bel Air's for me.
It's thicker.
Or
Bel Air's is more of a dressing, right?
Okay.
And like dressings come with a thinner consistency, right? So it's thicker. It's more of a dipping sauce. So you have more of the thickness to it.
Have you ever had the honey mustard at McAllister's?
Yes.
I stay in that stuff, dude.
Oh, it's so good. Does McAllister's count as a fast food joint?
Probably not, but...
Okay, well, if it does, then yeah, that...
But I'm just saying, like, how does Wendy's compare to that?
So McAllister's...
It's kind of spicy.
It's better. Yeah, it's got that spice to it. It's not... Wendy's is not spicy.
Next week, what are we saying? Top 4 honey mustards in the world?
I will go try every honey mustard.
We're going to keep getting more and more specifics, and it's like top 4 honeys in the world. Like, the Egyptian Moscow honey is so good.
Top 4 honey-based honey mustard, not mustard-based.
Yeah, that's true.
So Wendy's is better than Arby's honey mustard.
Okay. Wendy's is better. Wendy's is better than Arby's? Is that what you just said?
Yes, in general, yeah.
Okay. I thought for a second there I had that reversed. I thought you were saying Arby's is better than Wendy's. I was like, then why didn't that make your list? That's ridiculous.
Arby's. I like honey mustard. That's my go-to.
No, this is the one thing I'm taking from this conversation is that you are way more invested in honey mustard than I ever knew or anticipated or expected.
Oh, I mean, it's similar to barbecue sauce, right? Like every barbecue is a little bit different. They're all kind of based the same way.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, I don't know that like a barbecue sauce would have ever made my fast food list either, though. Because barbecue sauce, I agree, it is vastly different. But if I'm dipping my nugget in it, I don't really care that much. Now, if I'm putting it on like actual barbecue or I got like something like that, I'm cooking with it, then I care. I want it to be more ketchup-y, sweet base, brown sugar base, as opposed to like a vinegar base, something like that. Probably but nowhere that you go and get a fast food one is it going to be vinegar based. Nowhere you're going to go is it going to be Virginia hot sauce, right? It's all going to be that same kind of smoky thing. So yeah,
a sweet, tangy barbecue.
Yeah.
Honorable mention. Do they still have the sweet and sour?
You're about to give me like 6 different honey mustard honorable mentions, aren't you?
No, I'm not.
My honorable mentions tonight is the honey mustard at Sonic and the honey mustard at Arby's.
Do they still have the sweet and sour sauce at McDonald's?
Yes, I think so.
That's my go-to. I haven't been to McDonald's in a long time.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that one. I'll go with you on honey mustard because I do like honey mustard. I've just never have had that one. But I got that the other day because McDonald's right now has like I don't know, it's some goofy name special where you get a Big Mac and 4 nuggets and fries.
Something stupid.
Yeah, so I got it and it came with like a special sweet and sour sauce and it was okay, but it wasn't special.
I like it.
I would have rather had barbecue.
Their sauces aren't great.
Mm-hmm.
So, of their different sauces, it's the best.
Okay.
Their barbecue's it's really good.
All right.
I haven't had the Popeyes ranch in a long time.
So good. It's so good.
Being good. Popeyes. There's one like 2 minutes from my house.
Here's the thing. Popeyes sauces in general, several of them could have made my list. They have a sweet heat that's really, really good. They have a honey mustard, but I think it's more mustard based, so you probably wouldn't like it. And I don't like it that much either, but it's okay. It's different.
I gave an honorable mention to Chick-Fil-A sauce. It's not my favorite.
It's a little mayo based, I'll admit, but it's got that smoky kind of barbecue flavor to it that I like. Is
it the same as the one that comes in a packet?
No, it's different.
Okay, that's better to me.
That's good, yeah. That honey mustard.
Face Esquire cheered. X1000. Give to Steven to go buy a real meal instead of Wendy's.
Where do you go eat fast food, or do you not eat fast food? That's probably the best answer. Is you don't.
Well, what we have to realize is that Face Esquire is a fully fledged, real life adult lawyer who makes money and can eat the finer foods like Raising Cane's. Doesn't have to steep to things like Wendy's.
Well, on our balling on a budgets over here.
Here's our problem, Face. There's just not a lot of variety in fast food around us. It's like McDonald's, Wendy's, Arby's, Sonic, and the occasional, one of the 1,000 chicken places. Now, with that said, Face, thank you so much for the 1,000 bits. That will all go towards my adoption fund, and none of it will go to Steven, so get scammed. I'll buy him a burger at some point from a fine establishment of food. Speaking of which, Steven, what do we think? Next week, maybe Mount Rushmore of...
Honey mustard. We already decided
Of honey mustards. We already decided this. No.
Of Wendy's food items.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Wendy's orders. No, but what about chicken sandwiches? It seems like there's a war of chicken sandwiches. Everyone's launching their own.
Is this... are we doing just fried chicken sandwiches? Because that's...
Oh, my gosh.
I'm asking...
Yeah, fried chicken sandwiches.
Because I'm a... number one on my list would be the grilled chicken club from Chick-Fil-A.
Oh.
But if we're just doing fried, then that changes.
Yeah, we're just gonna do the chicken war, which everyone's trying to do this fried chicken sandwich. Okay.
I'll have to go try Popeyes this week. I'm guessing.
Oh, Popeyes is pretty fire.
Somebody else has a chicken sandwich now.
Everyone has a chicken sandwich now. Burger King has one. McDonald's has one. I don't eat Burger King. I know you don't, but I'm just saying, they all come out with this one that's mimicking Popeyes and whoever else is trying to do it. So. Yeah. All right. Hey, this has been a great little tangent into the sauce corner, but do you have anything else sports related or sauce related that you need to mention before we close out tonight's episode?
Go try Wendy's honey mustard this week. Thank you.
Here's the thing. Are you going to go and get a Chick-fil-A sandwich and put some of that on it? No, you wouldn't. You'd get Polynesian. We already covered this.
Well, I put Polynesian number one.
That's why I know. Hey, I'm with you.
Polynesian is gone. We may have to talk about it.
If you've hung on to this episode this long, thank you so much.
We're so sorry.
We're so sorry. A couple of things we want to remind you that you can catch this live on Twitch, twitch.tv/PastorNick86 every Monday night at 9 o'clock Eastern. And we are really excited for you to watch us live, come in and participate in the chat. But also to join our Discord. If you can't catch us live, the next best place to interact with us in conversation is in our Discord server. Steven is so active in there, replying to every thread, engaging in wonderful sports conversation, giving advice for fantasy leagues, all of that kind of stuff. So join the Discord. You can talk about all kinds of sporting issues and events there.
Well, and honey mustard one.
And a honey mustard war. I'm gonna start putting I'm gonna make a Mount Rushmore topic here and let people weigh in on this. But you can also catch us on your favorite podcast app. You can also catch this tomorrow. That's Tuesday on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Either way, we want to thank you for listening to our Big 12 breakdown tonight. It has been a wonderful pleasure for us to be here. And until next week, where we're going to break down the SEC, be able to talk about some Week 0 games, and give our Mount Rushmore of fried chicken sandwiches. My name is Nick. You've heard Steven babble about Texas tonight. This has been the Sports Corner Podcast. Thank you for watching.
Go eat honey mustard.